Hi, students. As of this week, I've decided I'm going to split your videos into two parts. So you will now get two videos every week. One of them is going to go over the expectations for that week. It'll have reminders, it'll talk about how we did on tests and things. And then the other video is going to be your actual lecture. That's going to be on the material that you should have read for that week. So this will split the video up into two smaller parts, which I think will make things a little more palatable. But you have to remember now to watch two videos. Watch the first one, watch the second one. Yes, that's two. And if you need to take a break between the two, that's awesome. You probably take breaks somewhere in that first long one that we've been having up to this week. Nonetheless, just know that's what we're going to be doing from this point forward. So without much ado, let's just jump in. This is your first weekly expectations and preparations video. Woo! All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go to our good friend, the PowerPoint presentation. And the first thing we have to do, and I'm going to move myself up a little bit. There we go, is to get real. All right, people, we just had an assignment due this past Friday. And out of 26 students we have in our class, 16 turned in assignments on time. That is not a good percentage. This is a remote class. And so I don't know if you're not used to reminding yourself, being well organized, making sure you're keeping along with the class. But that is a big responsibility for remote class students. I am going to plan some one-on-one meetings with everybody in the class coming up very soon, so we can take a look at how you're doing, maybe talk about how you're being organized, what you need to work on going forward. So you and I are going to have some special time together. But nonetheless, you really have to keep track of your deadlines, of your progress, the whole shebang. And up till now, in all the videos, I have been saying, okay, here's when this is coming due. Here's when this is coming due. Here's what you're expected to turn in. This is what you're expected to turn in at that time. So if you're having difficulty keeping up, please let me know. We will discuss it anyway going forward, but let me know, and there might be some strategies that I can share with you that can help you keep up the pace, make sure this class is not getting caught by the wayside while your other classes are going on. Because I know this is not your only class. You have other things going on, but all classes are important. And you don't want this one to take a nosedive while you're working on another one. It's the fun of college. So we have a lot of students who are missing quizzes and assignments, and I'm expecting a lot of emails to come raining down. I already have received a few raindrops coming my way. And quite a lot are saying they were sick all last week, were unable to do it, or they suddenly became sick on that Friday. Half of me is like, because you have several days where you can turn it in. I know most people wait until the Friday, the actual deadline. But then the problem is, if you wait to do all of the producing of your video, the uploading, everything until the very last minute, if anything happens, you're going to be messed up. It's just going to be very difficult for you to turn in a quality product, even if you're feeling well and good. You know, you can't have a sudden surprise of any kind. That would be a non-emergency. If you're sick and you're legit sick, it does require a doctor's note, just letting me know you did see a doctor about this. That's how ill you were, that you went in. And it can be mental health as well as physical health. So if you're feeling like you're dealing with a lot of stress or anxiety, and that's preventing you from somehow getting your assignments done, go see the mental health clinic on campus. They can write you a note that says, Professor Brooks, we saw this student, and I will be like, okay, legit mental health issue. We're going to work around that. We'll make that happen. Physical illness. I hear a lot about illnesses that people are like, well, I could get around, I could do things, but I didn't feel well enough to do this speech. And I'm like, wow, okay. Um, if you're able to drive around town and take care of your family, or if you're able to go to your part-time job, or if you're able to do all that other kind of stuff, it makes me go, then why are we not able to work on the speech? Um, I know sometimes expenses are a thing, but on campus, their visits are extremely reasonable. And if you're sick enough that it puts you off of an assignment, just go ahead and see the doctor, get a note, and that will tell me, okay, I'm calling that legit. It's verified. We'll give you a second shot, or we'll give you an extra couple days. Other things that would help you get rescheduled, if you have a loss of internet, because that seems to be an issue, it requires a verifiable source. If your internet just goes out and it's not your problem on your end, then there should be some sort of notification you receive. A lot of people get text messages, or later on you'll get an email saying, okay, this is a problem. Or even the media, if it's an emergency that was caused by weather, knocks out all the power, okay, that's easily for me to see your town, yep, you did have crazy thunderstorm, I can see it knocking out your internet for a while. If your own personal technology goes nuts, if you have to get it fixed, send me a copy of like an invoice, whatever they're charging you. You don't have to put the numbers or the information. I just need to see that you actually did have to get things fixed. If something goes nuts and you're like, okay, I really don't have documentation, but let me explain to you. And if it sounds logical and I can go, okay, I believe that, as far as the technology goes. But if there is any way you can verify technology problem, just use that information, and we'll work with that. If you have a legit tragedy, and I hope I don't have to describe to you what a legitimate tragedy is as composed to a non-legit tragedy, it would require some kind of a source. If you have to fly somewhere to go see somebody, or if you suddenly have to leave town, be out of town for a while, if there's something you can share with me that shows you were on the road during that time and it was a legitimate relationship, it was legit related to a tragedy, I'm good with that. If it's, like I said, I hope we don't have to describe a tragedy, but if there's any kind of documentation that you can say, look, here's my documentation, this actually happened, I didn't have time to prep for it, I was off and running, then I can work with that. Things that are not good excuses are forgetfulness. I completely forgot. We need to be treating this class like it's your job, because it really is. You're preparing for the rest of your life, and everything you're doing here is like having a job where the next step in your career is going to be being a professional. So if I forget and I go to my boss and they go, okay, you had this speech that was due for our director to give, where is the speech? It's due today. And if I go, I just forgot, oh my gosh, let me do it right now. A lot of times that's not going to happen. They needed it at that point, and it's not going to be good for me. It is going to definitely go in, people do keep records of these things, so it'll go in my permanent record. So forgetting is never a good excuse. An illness, like I said, that somehow prevents you from doing an assignment, but it doesn't need a doctor visit, or you don't need some kind of documentation saying that this is an ongoing critical thing that I don't have to see a doctor for, but it can cause me issues. That kind of documentation I can go with as well. But if it's something where some life just got in my way, but it's not an emergency, it's not a tragedy, it's not technology issue that you really just could not get around, then I have to kind of let you deal with the consequences of that. And I hate saying that, because there's nothing I hate more than a zero, and I'm sure you believe that as well. So let's have fewer zeros. If you legit have a emergency or an illness, technological problem that you really could not get around, tragedy, all those things, please send me an email as soon as possible with documentation if you have it, if you can provide it. Let's, like I said, this is like your job right now. You might have a part-time job or some other full-time job in the meantime, but being a student is like having a job. And a lot of things you just cannot miss. And assignments, quizzes, those are required for our class. Keep an eye out though for bonus points. I do like to throw those out from time to time if I think no one's paying attention, especially. And I've already done that in one case. And out of our 26 students, 2 people noticed it and sent in something. We also have another bonus opportunity out there somewhere. So you need to be reviewing our course platform, the portal that we use for our class. Look at the documents, look at the syllabus, look at the schedule. There's all sorts of places where I could be hiding opportunities for bonus points. And when I say opportunities, every now and then I might be like, here's an opportunity. I'm not going to say what it is right now, but an opportunity might come if I feel gregarious or I feel like, I feel like grading something else. So you never know. Keep your eyes open though, because those opportunities will not be ongoing with limitless opportunity to turn it in. There is going to be a deadline. You have to do specifically what the bonus says or the opportunity says, but they do exist. So don't feel like, if you've missed a quiz or you missed an assignment, don't feel like that's the end of the world. Professor Brooks is super mean. I just, the best I can do now is a C, so I might as well just give up the rest of my course. Don't think that. There are opportunities, but we also have consequences and we have to uphold those consequences, or otherwise it's not fair to your fellow students. 16 people actually did turn in the assignment. And if I just, okay, you're fine, go ahead and do it. It's not fair to those people who really did push through and make their assignment happen. So if anything, I'm fair. I'm fair, but I'm just too. And that's why we have the bonus points and possibly opportunities coming up in the future. So, all right, let's take a deep breath. Let's relax a little bit. I know if you're watching this, you're probably unhappy. Well, get ready for more unhappiness. But I know that sounds terrible, but our informative speech is coming up, and oh, believe me, you're going to be like, why is she doing this to me? So much, I don't want to call it bad news, but news that you're just not expecting coming up in this video. Awesome. All right, so we've gotten real. This week, we're jumping into our informative speech assignment. We're going to be sharing that information in just a moment. In the meantime, please keep working on your midterm infographic assignment. We reviewed that assignment in the week 7 video. So if you do not remember what was stated in there, go back to that video and look at it again, or go to the page where the assignment is listed and you'll find out at least all of the directions. In the video, I do kind of show you some resources you can use. So if you're like, oh my God, I've never made an infographic in my life, watch the video. You'll get a lot of help. So info in last week's video lecture, check. Any questions, please check with me. I already have folks emailing me about the infographic assignment. I thank you so much. Thumbs up to all of you who are asking me questions about this. I actually have a lot of students who enjoy making the infographic. One, because it's not a speech, but 2, it's kind of fun to be a little creative, and this lets you use our topic of speeches and speech giving, presentation, all that kind of thing, and explore it in a different way. So this is your midterm. We don't have a midterm test. We don't have a midterm speech. We have a midterm infographic, and that is due next week, Friday, March 10th. Can you believe March is already here? This semester is just whooshing by. So March 10th at 11:59 p.m. That's a Friday. That's when usually our deadlines are. All right, so let's look at the informative speech information while we're here. Let me share my screen again where it is. Why, look, ta-da! This is our portal page where we have our informative speech. I know you're excited. I am excited. Okay, let's review, shall we? For this speech, you will inform your audience, that's what an informative speech does, about a specific topic related to a country that you will be assigned. I know you're like, you just completely made me uninterested in this assignment. Come back. Okay, things to know. The actual presented speech must be 4 to 6 minutes long. So previously, our speeches have been 3 to 5 minutes. Nobody has really had much trouble making things work with that time limit. Now we're adding a little bit more time. You will need at least four, 1, 2, 3, 4, sources verbally cited in your speech and listed in the works cited section of your preparation outline. Ooh, preparation outlines. We go into those in dramatic effect in the week 7 video, and in this week 8 video, we're going to talk about outlines again and how the works cited works. So, if you're not getting much from the book, and the book basically says, do what your professor says. These videos will have it, and then I have an example of a preparation outline in this week 8 section. So if you need to go back and use that as kind of a model, it's in there. All right, you will need to find, then this is even a more fun part of this assignment, I think, at least 3 people to serve as your audience. Yes, you'll be giving this speech to people. Woo! I know some of you don't like giving speeches to your computer screen, and I get that, and you'll be able to give it to people this time. Yay! Some people, though, don't like giving speeches to people, and they've been perfectly happy to be alone in their room giving a speech to the little camera. Public speaking needs to be, if anything, public. You need to give it to people in your presence. And so this is the assignment where that happens. The presented speech that you give will be video recorded by one of your audience members. I know. By the deadline, you will turn in, this is what has to be turned in, a completed preparation outline for this speech that also contains the YouTube link to your uploaded presented speech. Okay, so what you're going to turn is the outline. In the outline is going to be the link that I watch your speech with. Okay, so I go into great detail here, and I'm going to talk about it now. How are you going to do this? I know you're already like, I don't want to give a speech about a country. That sounds like so boring. Okay, it's not going to be boring if you don't make it boring, and it's not going to be about a country. I know you're confused already. So in the video weekly announcements for week 8, which is right now you're watching it, the list of students and your assigned countries will be displayed. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a screen that has everybody's last name with the country they are assigned. Make note of your country. There are no trades, no switch arounds, no arguing, no fussing about the country you get assigned. You can call me and say, oh, I have such negative associations with that country. You just have no idea. And if you legit do, I will require some kind of documentation. But otherwise, no ifs, no buts, no coconuts, people. That's the country you get. These are all countries that I can assure you most of us don't know that much about. Hopefully you've heard of all these countries. But if I ask you, okay, so tell me something interesting about that country, you might be like scratching the inside of your brain trying to think of something in there. So we're going to learn something apart from how to give a speech. Okay, you're to treat your assigned country as a general topic, which means you will have to narrow it a lot to get your specific topic. So you're going to try to think of a specific topic that has to do with something you like or something you could be interested in. You'll need to do some research to accomplish this properly. And I kind of give you an example here of something I just did when I was writing up your explanation. For example, let's say I like music and my country that I'm assigned is Canada, which Canada is not one of your choices, sorry. But you can then basically research, okay, Canada and music and see what pops up. And in this case, I put in Canada music and Googled it and got up, gosh, there's a lot of types of Canadian music. There's famous Canadian musicians or singers. There's Canadian music history, Native Canadian music. There's a million lower level topics. So those are still very broad, right? I mean, if I'm going to do my informative speech on Canadian musicians and singers, I mean, there's like a million of them, at least thousands. So how am I going to narrow that down? I need to be more specific. You need to keep narrowing your topic until you get something very specific for your speech. So if I decide I want to choose a type of Canadian music, I look up types of Canadian music, and they have a lot of Indigenous music, but then they do have Canadian rock, Canadian jazz, Canadian hip hop. And I'm like, okay, Canadian rock music, still not narrow enough. Not enough, because you've had decades worth of rock music from Canada. So I'm thinking about I need to narrow it down. I could choose from different rock bands. I can look at the history of rock music in Canada. I can look at a very specific decade of Canadian rock, Canadian rock in the 90s, Canadian rock in the 80s, Canadian rock in the 60s. And I decided, looking at all this, I'd like to do the history of rock music in Canada, as I can make that pretty specific. I can use each section of the history as a different main point, and I can fit that in 4 to 6 minutes, basically. Now, can I still write a book, on Canadian rock history? You could, and people do, but it's narrow enough that I can give a really good summary / overview. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. Now, if I wanted to, I could even, like I said, I could pick a decade, to inform my audience of rock music from Canada in the 90s. And they had Canadian grunge. They had Canadian, Canadian grunge would probably be what it was about. Some hard rock. Maybe some heavy metal happening up in there in Canada I don't know about. But as long as what you're looking at, you can split into 3 or 4 probably main points worth of material for the body of your speech, I think you're good to go then. So once you decide, okay, that's my specific topic, is going to be history of rock music in Canada, or whatever your specific topic is, you then, number 3, determine your specific purpose, which basically is your specific topic with whatever the topic of your speech is, whatever the goal is. So in this case, it's very easy. Remember, this is an informative speech, which means that our goal is to inform. So my specific purpose is going to be to inform my audience regarding the history of rock music in Canada. Bam. That is my specific purpose. So at this point, you're like, great, I can start writing my speech. Au contraire, if you watch the week 7 video, you know that is not true. This is when we really start doing the research. Now, I might think, well, shoot, I've heard of Bryan Adams and I know who Rush is. I can do something about the history of Canada. Rock music is not going to be that hard. I already have stuff coming out of my head. No, you probably do not know enough to write a 4 to 6 minute speech out of your brain. So you really do need to start now and start researching and finding some good sources. So you're going to gather materials that you'll use to build the body of your speech. And in the video from last week, week 7, we kind of demonstrated how that works. After you do enough research, you can put together the central idea statement for your speech. Once you have all the information in front of you and you're like, okay, I kind of see that the history of rock music in Canada goes through these 4 periods of time. So that gives me 4 main points. I can have a chronological order, and I'll start from the earliest time period moving up to the present. And that makes sense. It breaks everything down easily, and it helps me know what goes in my speech and what stays out of my speech. Because if it has to do with a certain period and involve rock music, it could go into my speech. If it doesn't have anything to do with both the history of rock music in Canada or those time periods, then it doesn't go in my speech. So that helps you filter out good information and bad information, build up your works cited, and get your body put together. So after you write the central idea statement for your speech, 4, you'll build your preparation outline in a Word document, making sure that all your main points and subpoints in it are single and complete sentences. Every main point, every subpoint in your preparation outline must be a complete sentence and only one sentence per main point or subpoint. I'm going to say this a million times in our class. Get ready. Okay, so on your outline, and I'll show you once I go through this in your lecture video for this week, what a completed preparation outline will look like. So it must have your left-hand header with your name, the class, the date, your YouTube link to your presentation. When you're writing this, you will not have the YouTube link yet because you have not yet performed your speech and recorded it. So just leave a space for that. You'll need to have your specific purpose. It must have a central idea statement, must have an introduction, a body with your main points, all of the supporting materials all throughout the body that support your main points. They are your subpoints. You must have a conclusion, and you must have a works cited section with all of your sources, remember 4 at least, properly listed. I know right now you're just like, oh, really? Trust me, this will be more fun than you think it is. At least I would think it was more fun. So anyhow, number 5, when your preparation outline is as good as you can make it. Remember, your outline is basically your speech, line by line. So when your preparation outline is as good as you can make it, you're like, this looks like it would be a very good speech. If I just read it off the paper, it flows well. It goes from topic to topic to topic, or main point to main point to main point. It's got a good introduction and conclusion, which is what we're talking about next week. The works cited are great. Let's get practicing. So what are you doing? You're basically getting so good at knowing the material in the outline, you really don't have to read it. However, you can develop and use a speaking outline on note cards that we talked about in previous videos that you can glance at to help you remember your points, keep you moving forward, and remind yourself of delivery cues, like making sure to look at your audience. Make sure that you're upbeat, that you have good vocal variety. Make sure that you are using good eye contact. So speaking outline, remember, is a very brief set of words and phrases that help guide you through your speech. You haven't necessarily memorized your speech, but you know it so well. You're not going word by word, but you're going point by point. Everything that you plan to say is in that presentation outline, and it's in your head. You just need to make sure you keep it in the right order, and that you're reminding yourself to use good delivery. Number 6, okay, this is where we get into the practicalities. Remember, you need at least 3 people to watch you give your speech. You can arrange this wherever you have space where they can sit and watch you. You will be standing, no sitting. So I will be watching you and your body language as you present your speech. You must have 3 audience members in your space who will watch your speech. They must be respectful to you and to your assignment and not be distracting or get bored. This sadly means no children under 12. Why? I know you're like, if you have kids, you were thinking that was going to be 2 of my audience members. Well, I have it from years of experience that children make terrible audience members. Even if you tell them ahead of time, listen, if you're good, we get cookies. You can bribe them with any number of things. It is impossible to get toddlers or elementary school kids to be perfect audience members. Plus, you're going to be thinking about them far more than you're going to be thinking about yourself and your speech. You're going to be like, they're not watching me. Why are they watching? It's going to be distracting for you. So, no children under 12. Can be anybody over the age of 12, though, as long as they can sit and be quiet and respectful and actually watch you give your speech. Okay, this is how we're going to arrange this. One person must be right in front of you, a little ways away from you, so that they can see you almost full body, if not full body. And then you need to have at least one person to your front left or this is your front right, and then one person to your front right or left. So you'll have people like this, one person here at least, and then people to your front, but spread out. If it's only three, one person here, one person there, and one person there. Why are we doing this? So you can make sure you're looking at all of them. You know, you don't want to stare at only one person and then leave these people out. When we're talking about delivery, we talk about needing to speak to the entire audience and make sure everyone's getting into it. So if you have more than three, that will help. You know, you can have people, a couple of people over here, a couple of people over here, but you need one person that will be your videographer, basically. So this is how this is going to happen. And whether it's your phone or your smart pad or your laptop or whatever, make sure one, that when you're shooting yourself, but then when you hand it over, it stays horizontal. And you're going to start by basically doing a selfie of yourself. So I'll get my phone right here. Basically, here's my phone. I'm going to say, okay, hi, here's my name. This is my informative speech. I'm going to show everybody in the audience so I can see how many people you have there and where they're positioned. They can all wave if they want to. And then you're going to hand your camera to your videographer, and they are going to basically sit there and record you. They're going to make sure that your head is in the shot. They're going to make sure almost all of your body is in the shot, at least waist up. But full body is what I would prefer. So the camera must remain on from the time you start it and give your name to when you hand it to your videographer. No cuts. I know it'll be a little swirly, you know, we're going to see the moving, and they're going to get a little, you know, used to having it, and they're going to put you in a good frame. If you need to, you can say, do you have me ready? And they can say yes, and then you can get started. Whatever you need to do, I don't care about that. Just no cuts, no edits. So camera must remain on, the video unedited from the time you say your name at the beginning, hi, my name is such and such, to the end of your speech when you're like giving your final compelling statement, and then thank you. And they're all going to burst into applause. Woo! The more applause I hear, the more successful I think you've done. So share that little tidbit. Then at that point, they give you the camera back, you turn it off. Boop. All right. Make sure that your videographer, though, can be trusted to try to do a good job. This shouldn't be your friend who likes to pull pranks. Number two, they need to be able to hold the camera somewhat steadily. You know, so don't give it to somebody who's going to be distracted a bit and they're just going to, their job is to be a videographer, but also to watch you. And they can watch you on your camera screen. No problem with that. And three, they need to be able to show your whole body or as much of your body as possible with the room you have. You may need to practice this whole thing with your videographer at least once before you do a recording for keeps. Just because you don't want to do it like for keeps your first shot and then have them realize, oh, I should have been, you know, I started listening to your speech and then I got distracted and just went, meow. So practice it once. It's a good idea. Okay, so once you get a recording that you're happy with, then you'll upload that onto your YouTube channel. You'll put the YouTube link to the video in its space on the preparation outline. You'll breathe, and then you will upload your completed preparation outline and send it to me. And I will go, what an amazing outline. What a fantastic presentation. A plus, 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 plus. Okay, as you have a time limit for the speech, you need to practice and time yourself while you practice so you know if you have enough time to fill at least the 4 minutes, but not go over 6. It's just as wrong to go over as it is to go under. Okay, contact me if you have any questions or concerns. And below I have some links to other students' informative speeches. These are not people in my class, but I got to tell you, every class that does public speaking in America's colleges and universities does informative speeches. So there are mountains of them available on YouTube. The first one is just a good example of a well-written, well-presented informative speech. The second one, you can tell that's a student for another class. basically they have their videographer kind of off to the side, but you can see they have an audience that they have in there. During the pandemic, a lot of speeches in classes were done like this. That person has a video aid, and they were required to have a Q&A session at the end of their video. You don't have to have those things. If you want a visual aid, feel free. I'm not going to tell you no. But this example does show you how good it is to engage with your audience, to have good delivery. And then it's possible to practice the outline enough where you really don't need notes. That guy doesn't have notes at all. You can use a speaking outline if you want to. I will not count off in any way if you have note cards in your hands. It's not a problem, unless I can see you reading from them, and then it's count off sitting. Okay, the third link, once again, it's a student for another class. Their professor wanted them to record so you could see both the speaker and the audience to make sure the audience was paying attention. I really don't care about that. I just want to see you, which is why your videographer can sit right in front of you so I can especially see you. The example shows you another way to engage with your audience, the kinds of people you can have. These are all relatives, I think, of this young lady. She uses somewhat good delivery techniques and how you can use your note cards. And she does use them, but notice she starts at the end to really kind of get a little reedy. And I want you to kind of see, it's easy to tell when someone starts really kind of going point to point to point on their card. So if you're like, oh, nobody will notice me, well, I'm sure she didn't think so either, but there she is on YouTube and it's obvious. So there's the assignment. I think it's pretty easy to understand, although there are a lot of steps, but you do have time before it's due. This does not mean you can wait a couple of weeks and then get started. Start now. I know you have the other assignment due next week. You can easily do them both at the same time and still get all your other classes done. I have faith in you. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this page. And now I'm going to share, going back to the PowerPoint. So we just went over the expectations for your midterm infographic assignment. And are you ready to see what your country is? And I just know the minute I show you and you look at your country, you're going to be so, why did I get that? But just know everybody in the entire class is thinking the same thing. So, all right, here it is. So there you go. Once again, and let me see if I can move me out of the way here because I don't want to get in the way. So look for your last name. And then next to it, that is your country. And I am keeping track. So if by some mysterious happenstance, I assigned you Canada, but suddenly your speech is about Hungary. I'm going to be like, why not Canada? What happened with that? And that will be a problem. So yeah, I know you probably don't know anything about Botswana or Bulgaria or Slovakia or Estonia or Chile. Some of these countries are very small, but that doesn't make them less interesting. They all have very specific cultures. They all have histories that are tragic, but also histories that are full of successes and excellence and joy. You can talk about the bad stuff if you feel like, I didn't know about that, and I'm really surprised that I never learned about that in my history classes. I think more people should know about that incident or era or time. Just make sure it's specific, a specific incident or time or battle or rebellion or whatever. It could be cultural, your specific topic. It could be about language. It could be about, prehistory. It could be, so many things. If you're interested in sports, see what sports are native to this country, or if there's a sport that they love that's not native, how did it get there? How do tell us about the teams, tell us, gosh, if there's a native sport, maybe you're like, that's a weird sport. Maybe I should learn more about that. I want you to learn something new. And honestly, one of the reasons I do this is because with previous classes, whenever I've given people the opportunity to pick whatever topic they want, People always do the same thing. Half the students actually do fine, but then half the students, which is half too many, will pick something they think they already know everything about. And they will then put off doing that assignment because, well, I already know all about, this topic. How hard can it, like, if it would be like me on, doing a speech on the history of chocolate chip cookies. I know all the Toll House stories and, the packages on the back and, the mythologies and whatever. I could easily do the speech. I can do it, in one evening, practice it the next day, record it the next day after that, turn it in a city. And what happens is I get something that's really thrown together at the end where they really didn't look for good resources because they thought they knew everything already, or they find resources that don't back up what they think they knew. And then suddenly they're having to go, oh, goodness, I really do need to research this a bit. And they don't have the time that they need. So I thought it never ends well, I guess, is the end of that. And, I thought when I started doing this, it actually works great because we're all starting with a country that none of us really know that much of. If you happen to get a country that you kind of know something about or you know it really well, just know that the heavens have smiled upon you because that's really never happened before. But you get to learn a little bit more about some place you didn't know that much about of, and you get to narrow it to a topic that could be very interesting to you. This might be something in the future you're like, I learned about that. That was really interesting. Maybe I should learn more about it. You never know where your next passion project might come from, and it could be from this assignment. So I hope you've written down your country. And if you need to go back and look at the assignment on our portal, please feel free. But I'm going to stop sharing. So your infographic is due next week, next Friday. Your informative speech, we're jumping off with that. You have your country. It's time to start looking things up and building up your specific topic. This might take a little, I don't think it takes a lot of time, but you might really want to kind of get into some basic sources where you can find a lot of different ideas. And if something jumps out at you, jump with that, narrow it down until it's something manageable. But if it sounds like something, what, I could do a speech about that. That could be interesting to me. And I wouldn't mind spending the time learning about this new thing. Let's go with that. If you find yourself after a few days of looking at your country and going, I still don't see anything I like, send me an email and you and I will jump into your country together and see what we can find. We'll work on it together. I'm not going to leave you alone, but we're going to all learn something new and we're going to have a fun time giving a speech about it. So, this is kind of a long weekly prep, weekly expectations video. They won't always be this long, but it's an important assignment. This is your third speech. After this, you have one speech left. This one is getting you ready for the rigors of your persuasive speech. Informative speeches, I think, are fun. Be sure to watch your lecture video for this week. And as always, any questions, thoughts, need ideas, need help, send me an email. I'm happy to do it. All right, I'll see you in the other video.